Hello, and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update for everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool community. So today we've got some interesting things. Marceau sent me this update that's been coming from the liquidity incentives channel. I'll be honest, I don't read that as often as I should. I know there's amazing stuff happening in there, but I kind of get the idea that I get it through osmosis from other areas of the community. So Marceau was like, oh, this is something really big, you should like share it, have a look at it. So basically what's happening is the pDAO, which is so Rocket Pool has two DAOs. One is the Oracle DAO and one is the pDAO. The Oracle DAO, their job is to kind of keep everything, all the contracts running smoothly. The pDAO's job is to kind of reflect the needs and wants of the community. Now, recently we had a few votes that I've covered on Rocket Fuel, and one of the votes was for liquidity incentives and a team being formed to like work with that stuff. So this is some of the work that that team has been doing. What they want to do is provide incentives for people to provide liquidity for the rETH pair on Balancer. Now, what does this mean? This means that if you provide liquidity on Balancer for the rETH pair, then you will also, not only will you get the fees as rewards, but you'll also get RPL tokens as rewards for doing that. So it really is a boost to your income basically. So now what happens with this is people will see that there's incentives to providing liquidity in this pair, and because there are incentives, then people go and buy rETH, and then they will deposit into this pool to try to earn some incentives. So the idea is that this will be such a beneficial pool to be a part of, and like the incentives will be so rich that a vast amount of people will mint rETH to deposit in this pool to earn the rewards. Now, I've kind of gone through it a little bit, but this is what the expectation is. It says this has the same amplification factor as Curve. This is a 2.8 times factor by bribing instead of directly supplying. So you bribe people who already have those tokens in those positions to vote on your behalf instead of buying those tokens and doing it, because that's not as effective. So bribing is 2.8 times more to do that. So basically they go on to say, let's assume 1500, I wish it was 1500, it's less than that now, well, not too much less than that, but 3.6% from rETH, 3% from wETH, assuming that gets split, that's 1.8% built in. That means 4.1 will need to come from the bribes. So if we put everything into this method, so 4.1% of the bribes equal to 2.8 times $30,187.50 a week for 52 weeks, and then divide that by ETH times that price. So X is equal to 68,000. So if we do this incentive pool, we can expect rETH demand to grow by basically 68%, because it's about 100,000 right now. So that's really, really great. So then Marceau talks on the liquidity incentives channel, and he's saying here's an idea that Val and I were batting around. Let's look at every crypto project that's paying incentives for their token X against the ETH pair xETH, and offer to provide a small incentive to match them to get them to migrate their incentives onto the rETH pair instead. So theory, rETH is uniquely positioned to be a better ETH equivalent for incentivized liquidity providing positions because it's credibly neutral, has zero counterparty risk, fully insured, net positive for ETH. So for example, Maker is paying Y dollars in incentives on the Maker ETH pair. We could offer to match their incentives at 10% if they're willing to migrate to Maker rETH instead of Maker ETH. They would benefit from higher liquidity providing pool yield and thus less dollars to spend to reach target APR. Slight bonus since we'd be co-incentivizing say 10%, social benefits for supporting ETH network health. We would benefit from significantly discounted liquidity. Example, at 10% match, it will be 10 times more capital efficient for us. broad integration and liquidity across many pairs, a foot in the door of future partnership. So like this kind of idea is absolutely amazing, and it's one of those things that I always think, like, why didn't we think of this before? Like, it's some of the best ideas that come out of this community are the ones that are really, really simple, like slight narrative shift, slight incentivizations, like slight things like that, that I feel like are unlocking such big things for us. And this is something incredibly exciting. Like if it goes to plan, I really feel like it's going to help push Rocket Pool as a protocol, rETH as a token, like, and as an LSD, and like RPL as an insurance token, as a governance token, like to the next level, like huge boost. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. There's this Defiant article about Rocket Pool to incentivize rETH liquidity. So it's a really great article that gives a lot of the information about what we've just been talking about. And Jasper was interviewed for this article and gave some information. So this is definitely worth reading. It's not too long. It might take you 10 minutes to read it, but it's definitely worth reading it because it covers a lot of the main points that I've been talking to you about. But this is a great look. The incentives committee will have an annual budget of 67,500 RPL, about $140,000 per month. So if we look at what happened in March with this here, this huge boost in deposits, I know that like this huge increase here happened with Tetranode, like a whale, like was providing incentives on the Curve pool, and we had a huge increase in the amount of tokens that were minted and locked, and like the total TVL. And since then, like, you know, we've not really had the same kind of push because the Curve pool was incentivized. So and that was only, I think, about $20,000 a month. This is $140,000 a month. No, sorry, $20,000 a week is what Tetranode was providing at its peak. So this is nearly double that amount. So hopefully we're going to get some really, really big coverage that comes from that. The next thing I want to cover is this discussion, I guess, from Marceau. So Marceau wrote the post about the decentralization spectrum of LSD providers. And he got a reply by this person on Reddit saying, I agree with the sentiment, but not the data linked in the tweet. It's flawed. Do your own research. And it was Marceau's own research. He kind of got offended. But then what happened was, but the person turned around and like said, Rocket Pool is also centralized simply because they can force rules on node operators, like using MEV boost. What happens when they try to force OFAC rules on their operators? Nobody knows. So this is the discussion that Marceau was getting involved in on Reddit. And what happened is Superfizz actually chimed in and he said, that's from Stratum Dev, good guy. I agree that it's the reason we need as many solo stakers as possible, no LSD with significant control over the network. But then that kind of led to a discussion taking place about what it means to be a Rocket Pool node and like to have a Rocket Pool node, and where does that line between, like, independence in your actions and the things that the protocol can force on you. So Superfizz reached out to this guy. He said, do you want to drop in there, folks, having a conversation about Rocket Pool governance? And I truly believe they're well intentioned. So like this discussion went on for quite a while, and it led to a big discussion taking place about what it exactly means to like be part of the oDAO, what they do. So Joe eventually chimed in. He said, things you would need to remove the oDAO entirely. EVM has to be able to read current beacon state. EVM has to be able to read historic execution layer state. EVM has to be able to read historical beacon state. Unbounded loops that don't require gas. And then Invis adds internet access inside the EVM, artificial intelligence smart contracts. And Joe adds, also has to make you coffee when you request it. So what happens is basically what Joe's saying here is like the things that we would need to do to get rid of the Oracle DAO entirely are just not possible right now with the state of Ethereum. Like the code does not allow it. So even though there might be, you know, a desire to remove some of the oDAO's powers, it's not going to be happening soon in the form that we're thinking. So like there definitely are questions about how all this works, and people are having really good and serious discussions about it, with the idea that they'll try to overcome it eventually, or try to limit its impact, the governance impact that these things have eventually. Wow, that was quite a discussion there, so it was quite intense. Anyway, yesterday I talked about the NFT stuff that was happening from Rabbit Hole, and how people on trading are trying to capture that same energy. So, you know, I talked about this channel, the rETH deposit rETH, get an NFT plan. So Sleety shared a project that he's been working on called Beetles, I think. I'm not sure of the exact name, but basically came up with different kinds of beetles as an NFT project. And this is just like, you know, idea stage right now. It's not necessarily like this is what it's going to be, but he created this series of NFTs that like have increasing rarity and attributes and features, and they look really cool. And the idea is basically that as you mint the different classes of beetles that he has, like 100 different classes of beetles in total. This is a 3,000 NFT set. So he worked out, like, you know, if you mint 1 ETH, you get this. If you mint 2 ETH, if you mint 10 ETH, if you mint 100 ETH, if you mint 1,000 ETH, and like, you know, gradations of that. And just running really rough numbers, it turned out to be that you can basically incentivize maybe 100,000 rETH mint in total if you have a successful project that went like this. So I'm not saying that this will be the project, but this is an idea that could incentivize big rETH mints. So it's definitely something that's going to help the protocol a lot. So that's something really great to see, that people are working on this quite seriously. And then finally, I mentioned Moon and his Elliot Waves on this channel before, and I haven't really talked about the price much. I really don't like talking about price much, but there's quite a lot of despondency around at the moment because of the price action. So basically, Find Your Moon has been sharing his or their analysis about Elliot Wave theory. And for the last few days, sorry, I should have had this opened up already. Moon has been saying basically that, well, you can go back and check the messages yourself, but he's been saying that, you know, we're gonna come down and then go up and then come down, and then we're off to the moon, basically. So I'm not saying that Moon is you know, some kind of technical analysis like profit or anything like that, but some of the numbers that Moon has been talking about and some of the suggestions they've been making have kind of been in line with price action that people have been saying. So right now we are very much in the position to, according to Moon's technical analysis, in a position to bounce up to around the $1,800 point within the next week, maybe the next few days. Moon's prediction is then that we'll come down to around 1,300 or 1,280, and then that will be the low of this local low at this point, at which point we'll go up. The Moon does think that there's a chance we'll go lower than that, but it's one of the less likely situations. So a bunch of people started trading based on this, even though Moon says this is not financial advice, and people are actually making money, you know. So people are like buying at this point based on this advice. People are already up, you know, a good amount of money, and yeah, there's some positivity here if Moon's analysis is right. I hope it is, because I really want to see ETH going to the moon, just like everyone else. On that happy and positive note, even though there's darkness in the markets around us, I will leave it. The episode has run quite long today, but I hope you all enjoy it and enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.